Today, in her dissenting opinion of Trump v. CASA, Justice Ketanji Brown Jackson wrote, "Our rights-based legal system can only function properly if the executive and everyone else is always bound by law." Today's decision is a seismic shock to that foundational norm. Allowing the executive to violate the law at its prerogative with respect to anyone who has not yet sued carves out a huge exception, a gash in the basic tenets of our founding charter that could turn out to be a mortal wound. Justice Brown's powerful dissent today raised many questions in my mind, in your mind, questions that no doubt many of you are asking yourself about what this all means. Questions about the implications of today's Supreme Court decision on our Constitution, on the law, on our rights. Chief among them, what happens when the highest court in the land seemingly allows a carve-out for the executive branch to violate the Constitution? Luckily, I have the perfect, one of my favorite, probably one of your favorite too, constitutional scholars to ask. Joining me now is Democratic Congressman of Maryland, Jamie Raskin. He is, as I just mentioned, a constitutional scholar and also the ranking member of the House Judiciary Committee. One of the things, it's great to see you, and I'm so grateful to get to talk to you on a day like this, which is a difficult one. But one of the things I started the show with was talking about how of the three branches of government, two seem to have surrendered at this point, in large part. I mean, certainly the legislative branch and large swaths of the court, not the lower courts, but with this ruling today. Should I take a breath? Are you alarmed? How do you kind of see this ruling?
Well, it is an instructive tale about how many conservative Republicans have completely capitulated. But the people have not given in. On the contrary, the people are becoming more engaged and more outraged by every offense against the Constitution. Look, we've beaten Donald Trump 7 times in court on birthright citizenship in 4 district courts, 2 Republican judges, a Reagan and Bush judge, 2 Democratic judges, Obama and Biden judge, and 3 appeals courts. 100% of the cases have said that his birthright citizenship executive order is completely unconstitutional, or as the Reagan judge put it, blatantly unconstitutional. He said in his 4 decades on the bench, this is by far the easiest case because of what he'd done. So you get a completely Trumpified, gerrymandered court stacked and packed by Donald Trump, and they know that they can't rule against the Constitution on the substance, so they pull a rabbit out of a hat and they decide that the Judiciary Act of 1789 has been misinterpreted basically for centuries, and that federal district courts do not have the discretion to impose a nationwide injunction, even if they're looking at something blatantly unconstitutional. Can you imagine this court doing that if a Democratic judge had, for example, issued an executive order seizing everybody's assault weapons in the country? Do you think they would say, well, you've got to go to every single district court in America, to 94 district courts? Or do you think they would allow the universal injunctions that were being issued, for example, by Judge Kaczmarek, the right-wing theocrat Republican judge, the only judge in Amarillo, Texas? And you know how the GOP was lined up around the block to get into his chamber so he could issue a nationwide injunction on culture war cases like mifepristone. But instead, they decide to use this case to completely overturn and revolutionize the doctrine of the equitable jurisdiction of a federal district court. So I'm with Justice Sotomayor. I'm with Justice Jackson. I'm outraged by this. But having said all that, the people are tough, and the Constitution is tough, and the people and the Constitution are going to stick together on this. We've beaten them in 4 district courts across the land. If we've got to beat them in 94 district courts, we will do that. If we got to beat them in every appeals court in the country, then we will do that, because people are standing up in every city and town to defend the basic elements of our constitutional system. And one of them is that if you're born in America, you're a citizen here.
Which it should be, and they will rule. I mean, I think everybody expects they will consider that the merits of that in the next term. To your point, I just wanted to read this quote about what Sotomayor gave that I think was you were referencing in part. She said in her in her dissent, the gamesmanship in this request is apparent, and the government makes no attempt to hide it. Yet shamefully, this court plays along. Let me ask you, because you've referenced this about the strength, and I started the show talking about this too, the strength of the country, the strength of the people. You have state attorneys general who are out there. I just talked to 2 of them who are ready to fight this. You have the potential for class action cases. What happens here next? What would you like to see happen here next with the resources that are possible? There are limitations in Congress. You're still in the minority.
Yeah. Well, there was a kind of carve out or a limited carve out to this very constricting judgment for state attorneys general. And the majority had to acknowledge that a state attorney general acting in parens patriae for the people has got to represent everybody in order to have complete relief, as they put it, in that case. So we got to take the state attorney generals seriously. If I were a Republican attorney general, I'd be very nervous right now because everybody in those states is going to be looking to them. And if they don't act, then every AG position in America should be up for grabs for people who are willing to stand up for the Constitution against a gangster state president who thinks he can do whatever he wants, even in direct violation of the text of the Constitution. Where are all the textualists now? Where are all the originalists now? They are making this up. Where did this doctrine come from that you can abolish birthright citizenship? Did the stork bring it? And so Justice Jackson did a magnificent job in her dissenting opinion, where she said, let's center what the constitutional violation is. This is not even a close case. So why would we get into all of the procedural games that the majority wants to plunge us into? Why don't we just decide that birthright citizenship is protected, as it has been since the Constitution was amended in 1868, when the radical Republicans had Congress overturn the Dred Scott decision? Why don't we just stand by that, and then we don't even need to get into this other question at this point of nationwide injunctions? But they're constantly appeasing Donald Trump and soothing his very easily wounded ego.
No question about that. Let me ask you, in the minute or so we have left here, I mean, you're a close watcher of the court. We all are. There were other rulings today. There have been other rulings. This was the last day. What do you make of the Supreme Court's rulings this term? How do you see it? There were some surprises, but not many.
Well, I mean, a good example is the one that actually took place in my home county, which I represent in Congress, the Montgomery County school case. There had been a policy in Montgomery County that your family or your kids could opt out of certain kinds of lessons. That policy was changed, whether wisely or not. But in any event, then some parents went to court to say that they had a constitutional right to opt out. And of course, because of the particular political dynamics of the case, the MAGA element on the court rushed to embrace it without considering what the real implications of that are. If you can opt out of teachings that mention gay people, for example, because it offends your sincere religious beliefs, well, then why can't you opt out of a science class that mentions evolution if that conflicts with your religious beliefs? Why can't you opt out of a class that talks about war if your family embraces pacifism? And so once you go down that road, it unravels the whole idea of having a public school education. Now, nobody should be conscripted to repeat something or participate in a ritual where they have to subscribe to an ideological precept they disagree with. The Supreme Court said that in West Virginia versus Barnett, saying you don't have to participate in the flag salute. That was with Jehovah's Witnesses, because that's making you confess a faith or an ideological belief you might not share. But being exposed to books or ideas that might be in conflict with other things you believe is the essence of education. And so you can't base an educational system on the idea that I'm going to pull my kids out of class whenever they're teaching about something I don't want them to learn about. Or in any event, it's going to make schools much more difficult to run. And really, that's the bottom line idea here. It's part of the right-wing attack on public school teachers, public school curriculum, and the institutions. They want to try to wreck our public schools. So again, we need people across the country to stand up for public education, to get involved in the public schools and make sure that the right wing is not wrecking our ability to actually teach our kids.
What a good note to end on. I always love talking to you. Thank you so much for helping provide some clarity this tough day. Really appreciate it.